هی امروز پنجشنبه است. بشینین، ریلکس کنین. شما روی کاناپه سبز هستین.
So you may have noticed that our intro was a little different. We have a special guest host, Pariya. She is not Bill in so many other ways. Bill is out. She's definitely not Bill. Bill is out seeing a band called Hawk Percival at the Satellite. So Pariya is going to sit in and we're going to talk for a bit, and then you're going to stick around and do the interview with Jenna.
Right.
So we have you for the whole night tonight.
All right.
The one thing that you may have noticed in the intro that it was in Persian, and Pariya is from Iran.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Iran, and I moved to the United States in 2006.
The one thing that most people don't know is I speak a little Persian.
Mm-hmm.
I know the two most important phrases that a man should know in any language. First, I know how to say, "You are beautiful."
Yep.
And "Will you dance with me?"
Exactly, and that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
If you learn those two phrases in any language,
Right.
that's it.
And do not trust the Persian guys who are going to teach you the language, because they will teach you the bad stuff.
Right. So that's what
Okay.
happened. That's what happened with me. Like I had a Persian
Yeah.
Lyft driver, and he's like, "Oh, this is what you say." And I remember I had to confirm it with you to make sure it was the
Right.
it was the right phrase. I started like looking up phrases because it's actually a very pretty language, and I noticed that some phrases that you guys have, and it was like kind of notated in this thing that you only use these phrases if you're in a close relationship. I guess it's not socially acceptable to say some certain phrases to like a mutual friend or, is that,
I'm trying to think of an example right now, so
Right,
that's why
yeah.
I'm like giving you this like blank face.
That's
and
fine,
I'm
yeah,
like,
no, 'cause-
wait, what?
Yeah, my question wasn't really good, and I can't remember the exact phrases, but I just remember that it was like culturally that you have like phrases that, because here in the States, we are like, "Oh, hey man, I love you."
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like there'd be an equivalent of that in Persian
Right,
that you don't
right.
say that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that there's a lot of emotions in our language, and it's really beautiful, and it can be really romantic. And the literary form is very different than the, conversational, like colloquial language. The typical I love you man, you gotta be like, we have two different versions for it. So like the literal translation of love, you probably don't use it because that means like you're madly in love with someone. So you're not gonna say that to your, to your guy friend, right? That's something you would say to your girlfriend or your wife.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's what I was talking about.
Exactly.
Like here in America, we just toss words around like,
Yeah.
The I love you thing.
Right.
So with that in mind, this is what happened to me. I'll tell you my story. There's a deli across the street where I go get lunch every now and then. I just walk over there, and I'm there like a couple times a week, and I go back and I order whatever. And, you walk up to the counter and the person always says, "Can I help you?" Or what would you like? So I went in there the other day, and the girl behind the counter, she turned around and she said, "Oh, hey, sweetheart, what can I get you?"
Right. Right.
And I was like, "Oh, cool, sweetheart." Like, all right. I mean, it didn't hurt that she like this is like beautiful Latina woman. She's like a Springsteen song, right?
Right.
So I was like, cool. All right. So I ordered my thing, and she called me sweetheart a couple of times. And then I kind of like paid for my stuff. I was feeling all kinds of good. And then I walked out the store. I was like, wait a minute. I've just been objectified, right? I've just been objectified.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been holding this for like a week because I wanted to talk to you about getting a woman's perspective. And, have you been called sweetheart in both languages in that type of way? Or has because I know, like you said, that in Persian, they would not call you sweetheart because that meant, is there like
like they would call you sweetheart, but that would be your family members, someone who wants to say that you're really dear to me, like Aziz Delam, that's what we say in Persian. But if I go to the store, like, the guy's not going to call me that because that just seems like, whoa, what did you just call me? Yeah. But I have been called sweetheart many times here in the States, in the United States. And
Like, how'd you feel about that?
to me, it's really about the person's intention. And you can tell a person's intention. I think if you've been around, like you can tell. So sometimes I don't take it too seriously when people like call me sweetheart, unless someone I can tell from their intention. It's like I may, feel a little awkward. It also depends on like the situation. If my supervisor calls me a sweetheart at work, yeah, that's going to be weird. But I have been called that, and I've noticed with a lot of older men who did not have any bad intention at all, it's been fine. It's just the way they say it, the way they look at you is just different.
Yeah,
So,
okay, that's fine.
That's
'Cause
my take on it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I've been called sweetheart by many women as well. I just feel like when a woman calls you a sweetheart, it's different somehow because they're just not a man and you just don't think about it. But when a man calls you a sweetheart, you're like, whoa, wait a second. Like, what's the intention here?
Right. No, that's kind of what I was. That's what I was
Right.
kind of. I was fishing for that because I was like, well, yeah, I was objectified, but I didn't mind. But I can imagine, when a woman is called sweetheart, it's definitely like it's usually prefaced by, "Go get me a cup of coffee."
Exactly. That's a big element as well. You can tell when someone calls you a sweetheart but respects you. And you can also tell when there is a little bit of condescension. That's my take, yeah.
But the sweetheart thing, it sounds like something like from the 50s where they all used to.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the like older generations because even today, if someone calls me sweetheart, they're usually from that generation. And I try to be mindful of that as well. If it's someone from like an older person and I can tell they don't have bad intentions, I don't take it too seriously because they're just from a different generation.
But yeah, so I'm gonna let it ride. And like I said, I don't mind I don't mind being objectified because as a man, you're never really like objectified.
Right.
And
But
I don't mind.
mean, yeah, as a woman, I feel it every day. Like you walk around on the streets,
Right. And it's a weird feeling, right? Because
It is.
It kind of hit me as I was walking out. Like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, I've just been objectified.
exactly. And it's a very uncomfortable feeling. Like you shouldn't feel uncomfortable walking down the street,
Yeah.
being catcalled all the time.
Personally, I could take a cat call.
You can take a catcall. Yeah, whatever.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind a cat call. All right, so we're doing the Halloween episode. You were actually here in the room while we were doing this. Bill was doing the interview, but you were here, so that's why I wanted to have you come in because as we were leaving, we kind of talked a little bit about Halloween night.
Right.
I found it kind of cool, and I'm fascinated by Iran because I think it's a misunderstood country.
Yeah.
And the thing about you is that I know that you grew up during the height of the revolution.
Yeah.
So your parents were pre-revolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they got to experience like a different Iran. So tying this in with Halloween, I know it's like a giant jump from like geopolitical to like, hey, let's talk about Halloween, but that's how we operate. Did they celebrate something similar to Halloween prior to the revolution?
So, yes and no. It seems like based on what I heard from my grandmother, who passed away many years ago, there used to be this old tradition where men and women, I guess, would like put on some kind of mask on their faces and go to like different houses with a bowl and a spoon and maybe like knock on the door or something similar to trick or treat that we have here. And the people in the house would give them nuts or some kind of gift, I believe. And it seems like the ritual comes from the belief that good spirits of the deceased, they come back and like the living are giving them a gift. So I'm not an expert in this again. So, but that's what I heard. And this tradition would happen on a specific night on like the last Wednesday of the year before the new year arrives. When I was growing up, I didn't experience that myself. I think it was maybe during the transition when my grandmother used to be, younger, maybe she experienced it, but I didn't necessarily experience that. Now, today, though, we do have Halloween in Iran because we've just adopted it from the United States. Like, it's really not a tradition, but I do see my friends throwing house parties and in costumes, We don't have trick-or-treating. Like, you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see kids, like, going around, with a bowl of candy. We just got that, wearing a costume and throwing a house party and just be together. So we sort of have Western Halloween.
Well, no, that's fine because
Yeah.
the trick or treating is overrated. It's you go out and you get a bunch of candy, and then you're after like 4 candy bars, you're just
Full confession, when I first came here in 2006, my mom and I went trick-or-treating as adults. My mom was like a cat. She would just put on makeup on her face, but I was dressed up. And
How long did you stay out? Did you have like a whole
no,
bag?
it's like 5 minutes.
Oh, come
no, we
on.
just grabbed a few candies and then we're like, okay, that's it. We're going.
Right, but so trick or treating it's kind of it's good. Little kids love it because they get like a whole bunch of candy,
Yeah.
but they never get to eat it.
No,
Even-
they don't.
Right, because you got like 4 pounds of candy. Who's going to give an 8-year-old
Yeah.
4 pounds of
Yeah.
candy?
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's a little overrated. But the best part of Halloween is kind of dressing up. And,
It is.
having parties and stuff like that. Because we talk all the time about growing up in the revolution, and because they can't go out in the street in costume. That would be like,
Yeah, no, they can't.
so they have to bring it into their.
Right, exactly. So we have a lot of house parties where we just throw house parties and you're invited. You just walk in, it's like a different world. It's a different lifestyle. And you really think like you're in a club in LA or something. Like, but then when you walk out, it's just you have to be mindful of your clothes, what you're wearing. Even if you're a guy, you wouldn't be able to like walk down the street with your like shorts on. Like it sort of needs to be covered.
So these house parties, do you have like a version? Because I'm going to tie this into the haunted house. Do you have a version of like the haunted house?
No, we don't. And it would be wonderful to have those.
But have you gone to any haunted houses since you've been here in the States?
I went to Not Scary Farm many years ago. Yeah.
When we were talking, I call him Gonzo. His name is David Gonzales because he's like a connoisseur of haunted houses. And he talked about what makes a haunted house enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I think you would be the person that he was talking about. So if you want to elaborate on
Oh,
that.
yeah. I will be screaming nonstop. And yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I was telling you about it. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this. I've been living alone since I moved here. And I don't get scared. Like mentally, I don't get scared. And growing up, I was always into spooky stuff and paranormal activity and aliens and you name it, like all this stuff. So mentally, I don't get scared. But for some reason, my body, when someone like jumps out of the darkness or someone tries to spook me, my body just jumps and it shows a different reaction. And I almost feel like I just can't control it. So I will be the person who just jumps all the time and gets spooked.
So, I mean, I think that's what you probably should do this Halloween is just go to haunted houses and just be the person that screams or contact some haunted houses because according to Gonzo, he says that's what makes it is that person that screams.
Yeah.
Like the first person to scream kind of sets the whole tone.
Right. Exactly. And that's a fun thing.
Yeah. All right. So you're into scary stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
Definitely.
So you believe in ghosts then?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you had any experiences with that?
I think so. Yeah, I think I did.
What happened?
I was sleeping. I woke up. I was aware and up. And I felt this energy around me, like a presence. And when I got scared, I could I felt the energy actually moving, and I could feel it was like footsteps on the floor. I have hardwood floor in my apartment, and I could feel the footsteps just going toward the other bedroom, and that was it. And I kept like in my head, I just kept asking for it to please don't come back. I don't need company.
Right.
So
Could you move at that moment? Like when you, because there's that weird.
I couldn't move. So again, I don't know if it was, I don't know what was going on.
Yeah. There's a thing. There's like, it's like a dream paralysis. And
Right.
it happens every now and then. Like it happened to me when I was younger.
Right.
I had a similar experience. I was laying in my bed
Right.
and I was in that weird half asleep, half awake. And I was like awake.
Yeah.
And I felt something on top of me just
Right.
pushing down. I don't know. It seemed like it lasted for a long time, but you can tell that something was there. And then again, like when you got scared, I got scared and it just like floated away.
So it could be that too. Yeah. Could be
No.
that.
On Halloween, if you're not going trick-or-treating and you're not going to like a party, are you going to a party this Halloween or are you
No,
just...
I never get invited, man. I'm
Oh.
boring.
No, I don't go to Halloween parties anymore. I used to go. And
Yeah.
it
I
just-
used to go too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. It's like going to IKEA. At first, you're like, I'm going to go to IKEA. And then
Right.
you get into IKEA and you're like,
I
what the
know,
fuck am I doing
right,
here?
right,
You know, and then you
exactly.
can't get out.
Yeah.
You have to follow the maze and then you just regret going to IKEA.
Yeah. I used to get invited, but now I just don't.
I got no friends, so nobody
I
invites
got no
me.
friends.
But I used to go. So, but on Halloween, I do get that whole like, ooh, I'm going to watch a scary movie, you know. Do you have a Halloween night ritual or like, do you get like...
I usually watch whatever is on TV, but if I could choose, I would go with the X-Files because I grew up with the X-Files and that was always my most favorite series of all time. And it's not like super scary, but it just has that suspense.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I remember you told me how you would have to get episodes of the X-Files.
Yeah. Yeah. We had satellite. We had a satellite dish in the house. And I would watch the X-Files, but it was also illegal to have satellites. So I remember the police came and confiscated, what we had. And we got it again a little later. And my brother would actually go outside and set up the satellite I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday night for me to watch the X-Files, to be able to watch it. And then we would like assemble it and then remove it and then, bring it back to the inside because the police could not see that we had put up another satellite dish, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Because it was illegal at the time and they were really cracking down on people with satellite dishes, which included like 99.9% of the population.
Yeah, and that's really fascinating. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who would ever go that length to watch the X-Files.
Yeah, man, I love the X-Files.
But that's good. So, I mean, they should know that. I don't know, who the creators were, but they should know that.
Yeah,
there are
Chris
people.
Carter should know.
He should know that, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you would know who the creator is.
Yeah.
All right, so the X-Files, that's good. I mean, for me, it's the whole religion thing and the whole Satanist thing and the whole, like, I don't believe in any of that type of stuff, but it's kind of scary. Like when
It is scary.
When I was a kid, I think I was like 8 and The Exorcist came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just seeing the commercial.
Yeah.
And I actually slept with the crucifix on my chest
Oh, God.
for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I was terrified. And so to me, that type of stuff, that kind of left that imprint.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of afraid of
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. And, you never dabbled in like the Ouija board or anything like that, right?
Oh, God, no. Again, like, I don't, there are certain things that I do not want to mess with at all, including Ouija board.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So like at one point, like I don't know, I was maybe 13 or something like that. I had a really great friend, my friend Peter Zayats. And we were friends just because he sat behind me in homeroom. He was the kid behind me.
Yeah.
So we became friends. And at the time he was a nerd and I was kind of like, I was like this rocker kid, had like long hair and a fake, like that 13-year-old mustache.
Right.
So our worlds would never run in the same circle.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we became friends because he sat behind me and, he had like a pocket protector. He was a full-on nerd, but I thought he was cool. So after that, we kind of became friends and he kind of introduced me to a whole different world. So he introduced me to like H.P. Lovecraft and all this type of stuff. And we started talking about all the supernatural things and I got into tarot cards. So, And I was like kind of trying to read fortunes and stuff. And I had like
Yeah.
in my bedroom by myself, I'd be like messing around with the tarot cards. And my house is 2 stories plus a basement, and there was a garage in the basement. So it was like, second floor, first floor, basement, and a garage next to it. And I remember I was home. It was like, I don't know, like mid-afternoon. It was like 2:00. Nobody was home. So, I'm messing around with the tarot cards. And all of a sudden I hear just kind of from behind
Mm-hmm.
a voice saying, run, right?
Holy shit.
That's all I could hear was run. And I was like, what? And it said it again, run. So I flipped out. I just jumped up and I ran down the hallway, down the stairs. I could feel something just over my shoulder.
Oh,
And I
God.
just was running as fast as I could. I got down to the basement and I ran into the garage and I closed I had like a little steel door. I closed the
Yeah.
steel door and I could feel it outside that door. And I sat in the garage for 3 hours until someone came home.
Did you have to explain to them why you were in the garage for 3 hours?
No, because it
Okay.
was the suburbs. It was the mid-70s. I had
Okay.
long hair. They probably thought I was smoking pot. So,
Did the whatever it was, the ghost or whatever it was, bother you again?
no, I got rid of the cards. I was like, all right, I am out.
So would you watch The Exorcist for Halloween?
Probably. I think that's going to be my go-to,
Yeah,
think
your
that's gonna be-
ritual.
my ritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, we do the interviews on Thursday night, but we do these intro things prior. So Bill is out at a show, so he couldn't do either the intro or the interview. So that's why we have Pariya. But I got to say, Bill's a good looking guy, but you're much prettier.
Thank you.
And yes, so it's been a perk for me. But you're going to stick around and we're going to do the interview for a future episode.
Mhm.
But right now we're going to go to the haunted house episode with Amy and Gonzo. I'm going to call him Gonzo because that's how I know Amy and Gonzo. And Bill's going to do this interview with me and we're going to talk about the haunted houses.
So my wife, she was born in California, but she grew up a lot of the time in Phoenix. Alice Cooper lives out there somewhere. He's got a big old haunted house, I guess, that he does. Once a year or so, she'll just bring it up like she's never told me before. And she talks about going to haunted houses as a kid. It was something I never did. I was never really into. But she said Alice Cooper put the fear of God into people because he was so invested in making it live up to basically his name. People would be running after you and fucking hellraisers or whatever. I'm not a haunted house guy. I don't know what they put in there really, hellraisers. But people would be laying on the ground, grabbing ankles. She remembers stamping on a hand or two. She asked me to try and look up stats about the number of assaults that happen in haunted houses. And at first, when she was talking about it, I thought she was saying because there's creepy guys taking it as an opportunity to grope women in the dark. And she's like, no. I'm talking about the people working there, all the spooks getting smacked around by people who are freaking out. Does that happen at yours?
Not necessarily. Usually people are afraid. I've had people lay down on the ground and, they're too busy trying to run usually and get out of there. But, if you scare somebody at the wrong angle, they might get it once
Take a
in a
swing.
while.
So when did you start doing haunted houses?
I've been putting stuff together for probably close to 15, 20 years. When I was younger, I really wanted to work in the studio industry with makeup and all the special effects because I really liked blood and gore and all that stuff. I thought I was pretty cool. But having a family and doing all of that isn't real conducive. That environment isn't real conducive to also being a mother. I was in cosmetology school at the time, and somebody said, "Well, what about working on the dead?" And so I was like, So I went and I met an embalmer and checked it out and thought, oh, I could do this. So when my oldest daughter started first grade, I went to school and became an embalmer. And so that's what I do, is I work in a mortuary. And so when I started doing that, I had access to different things. And so Halloween time would come around and take a casket and
Yeah.
make
What do
stuff
you
at the
mean
house.
different things?
I would never do that. But, I would get different props and started messing around at the house and doing certain things for people to come up to the house, and then it moved to...
So did you start with a yard haunt?
Yes. So I have a guy that him and I partner up, and his name is Dale. And he would do that stuff too at his house. And it was totally awesome. Had all this stuff that we spend tons of time on it, and the neighborhood would come and whatever. And so anyways, at our church, I would do a big Halloween party, like for everybody in the community. And so I'm like, we don't have haunted houses here anymore. Like, why? What's going on? So
This is what the church said?
that's what I said. I'm like, where's the haunted? Because when I grew up, they used to do the haunted houses, at these parties. And
I don't know.
and then it
Episcopalians,
stopped.
they just gave up haunted houses at a certain point.
Right. Only Amy would go to church and go, there's no haunted house.
Yeah, right?
It was actually a church that got me back into haunted houses. I was driving, and there's some church, and I see haunted house, and it's like, it's near Halloween. It's just like, those are so much fun when I was a kid. Then it just suddenly occurred to me, like, when exactly did they stop being fun?
Right. Right.
Why don't I do this? So I just turned the car around, went in, gave my $7 or $10 or whatever like that, and had a lot of fun. And that was the decision. Ever since that point, I have been religious about haunted houses. I went and I just had, it was fun. It takes you in a very different place. It totally gets you out of whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking. You're waiting for the next scare to come, and you're admiring some amazing, beautiful, spooky work, and the cobwebs and the painting and all the art that's been poured into this place. So either you're appreciating it, or you're in anticipation of you're dreading something. In between those two things, it is a really great way to step out of your life. And I'm so hooked on that. So since then, there's never been a year where I haven't done a number of haunted houses.
So how many years has that been?
It's been around 20 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I tell people you're a connoisseur of haunted houses, but it's safe to say that you go and you visit and you actually rate them. And
Yeah, I take it very seriously, because it's like you can go to, you try to find the ones, and to me I'm not as much about the big corporate ones. Like it's been a while since I've been to like Universal Studios or something like that, but I'm really looking for the independent ones, like just something. It can be smaller, but that they've got a very tight theme. They know what they're trying to do, and they pour their hearts into it. One of the coolest ones I went to, not the best, but I just love what it does, is a bunch of 12-year-olds, I think it was, did one around a mile from here, and it was called Virus. And it was, you walked into the garage, and they just hung sheets of visqueen, that's that construction plastic. They made a little maze out of the garage and the backyard. And the entire thing was this escalating zombie thing. So you'd see spooky stuff, and then you'd start seeing the bodies, and then zombies running around. By the end, you're being chased around by zombies. And it was one garage and a small suburban backyard, and a roll of plastic, and a bunch of like cheap army man costumes and some fake blood. And it was great. It was fantastic. When you see somebody that's got a really good idea, that's to me what I really love about it.
It's a lot of fun to scare people. And so we come up with the ideas, and I'd be interested to see what you think of ours. And
I'd love to check it out.
yeah, and so Dale and I mean, we really put our heart and souls into this. Like, I really want to move to a big warehouse. And
do you have like scare meetings where you kind of get together and go, how can we like?
What about spiders?
It takes us 6 months to a year in planning to do what we do. We build out the whole bottom level of our church building in 4 days. It's so much work, but for me, it's so worth it. And I think that when I first partnered with Dale in doing this, he didn't trust me so much, because, you run into a lot of flakes and a lot of people who are all talk and no action.
And like,
You know what I'm
I gotta
saying?
say that I meet Halloween people, and they're completely opposite, because like you're blonde and you're very like California looking, and you meet someone that's like, I'm into Halloween, and they're always like in goth makeup, and they're really skinny, and they look like
All right, take a look, Jack
jet black
Skellington.
hair.
right. But so I can understand when it's like, when I first met you and you said, yeah, I do haunted houses. I'm like, all right, sure. Right? Because you look like you should be surfing and.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a
But
compliment.
anyways, go on.
Yeah, no, yeah. It took a little bit, like he was like, I don't know how serious she's going to be, you know what I mean? And we jive really well. So we just pound this stuff out, and he's really, really great with the animatronics. And I mean, he's just got the know-how of a lot of things, and we just put together ideas. So yes, we have a lot of, him and I have a lot of planning meetings, and then I get people together and get the actors and get, whatever. And I'm like, if we could do this in 4 days, right? Like build a whole bottom level of a church building.
Can you do me a favor? Could you call them scare meetings from now on? Can you just come
Yes.
back and go, this is a new haunted house rule. They're now called scare meetings.
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Just for you.
Just for me.
I will do that.
At Halloween time, I drive around and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that looks like a cool thing. But I have no patience to wait in line to be scared.
That's the hard part, I think, of the whole thing. Like, we've really built this up, and so we probably have close to, 400, 500 people that will go through we only run it for one night. It's always the Friday night before Halloween. And, and now word has gotten out, and there's a whole lot of people and the community and neighbors that all come. And upstairs, it's a party, it's a chili cook-off, and we, have dancing and, some games for the kids, and it's all free. We don't charge any money. And, but the line, to go down there sometimes can be a few hours.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a VIP list?
Actually,
And can Raz be on it?
Yeah, I was just saying, because we'll go.
there is a VIP list. You'll be glad to know.
Okay. Can you put us all on it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You guys will all be on it.
Because I hate waiting in line. I have
I know.
I have zero
it's
patience
really
for that.
hard. I think that's one of the biggest things that we actually have been talking about is how do you get all these people through in a night? It's really, really hard.
But one thing I think that a lot of people aren't thinking about when you're running a haunt is that your line is not a nuisance. It is not an issue. It is an opportunity. The Heritage Haunt, which is over in Santa Clarita, they would have all kinds of spooky stuff going on. So you're in the woods, and there's this old 200-year-old house. And as you're kind of working your way in the line, working your way through there, people would come up and mess with you while you're in the line. And there's trees all around. It was dark. The best thing was the 9-foot or 10-foot tall Grim Reaper that would come with his 2-foot long skeletal fingers and would slowly loom over people. And everybody else in the line is watching, and they're not going to say anything, so we know it's going to be a great scream's about to happen. And all of a sudden, some 12-year-old girl would see these fingers, coming over her shoulder and turn around and see the skull around the size of a washing machine behind her and just start screaming. So there's different ways when you're in a haunt, as far as how you're experiencing a haunt. Now, there's some haunts where you go by yourself. Now,
Yeah.
where one person goes in or a small group goes in. And then there's the haunts when you're getting to Not Scary Farm and probably Universal and all that, and definitely the Queen Mary, where there's an endless line of people walking through. It just never ends. And I find that weird. A big thing when you're experiencing a haunt is that you want to experience the traps. So what happens is if you're going in a group, so they're sitting in groups of 10, you don't want to be person number 10. Because everything you'll hear the screams
you're
up
never
front.
scared.
Yeah, and they're resetting everything.
Yeah.
And so what me and my girlfriend do when we're going in is we timing you looking at the groups and you time it. And even there's opportune times to bend over and tie your shoelaces and let people walk by, just to make sure that you end up in a better part of
it.
the haunt experience. Because a lot of people don't want to. There's a lot of people that actually don't want to be the people in front. They
Yes.
want to be the people back, and they want to experience a little bit. They hear the screaming and stuff up front, and they get to hold each other, but they don't want. They're going to have a heart attack if they're up front. And so,
Love those people.
yeah, so
They're the best.
there's an art to experiencing a haunt. And first of all, is trying to make sure that you're near the front, and then always, and I don't scream, I don't yell, I don't tend to get particularly scared about these. I love the experience of it, but I'm not the person. I always have to go with somebody that screams.
Because that's what makes it fun.
yeah, somebody
Yeah.
screams.
Oh, you should go with Bill then. He just screams all the time.
It's always fun and makes the experience so much more when you go with somebody who's going to scream and really get scared and want to run through.
Are you involved in the scare part, or are you just the queen on the top going? Yeah, I have all these things in my head. Like,
do you mean, do I dress up and scare people?
and participate?
Is that what you're asking?
Participate in the haunt.
I did that like one of the first, maybe the second year. And I loved doing that. And for when I would do it like at my house or whatever, of course, I was always dressed up doing that. But when you start getting bigger, no, because it's so crazy. You're running back and forth between, whatever, and there's just no time. You got to do one or the other.
Do you have walkie-talkies with earpieces?
Yes.
And do you have code names?
No.
Okay, so you need to bring this up at the next scare meeting. You guys need code names.
All right.
What would be your code name if it was?
My code name? I'm a big fan of nicknames, but you don't get to choose your nickname.
Yeah.
You'd have to have a whole scare meeting just to vote on each other's nicknames.
The names. Yeah.
I love that scare meeting is now catching on. But I would go with Mama Bear because I always call you Mama Bear.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So do you come up with a concept, obviously, after your haunted house on Friday the 25th?
Yes.
On the 26th, do you go, okay, next year our concept is going to be, or do you kind of like decompress it a little bit?
The mayor
Both.
in Nightmare Before Christmas is
Yeah.
like November 1. He's like, all right, everyone, great Halloween.
Well,
now for next year's plan.
It's actually both. We've already talked about next year, we haven't even been through this year. So we're pretty invested. And
What's this year's concept? Is it something, it's not like prom,
Or
1970, or like, what is it, Under the Sea?
no,
Do they have unified themes that way?
we have done some unified themes, and sometimes we just don't. We just kind of go with what we think with this room or what will flow. So I don't ever just like name it like something or name it a theme. But although in the past we have done some stuff, like we've done a movie theme of all of this, scary movies, and each section was something different from a scary movie and whatnot. But it's kind of mixed up.
At your next scare meeting, next theme, Under the Sea.
Under the sea.
Mermaider.
I'll keep that in mind.
So, especially for like the kids and stuff, it doesn't have to be as and I mean, being an aficionado, if I'm gonna come up with some snooty Halloweenist or whatever.
I say connoisseur. Connoisseur is like an
Okay.
aficionado sounds like a guy that wears a monocle. And,
That's more pedantic.
Yeah. Like connoisseur is somebody like holds the wine and goes, that's good.
So I personally, this coming from a grown-up thing. So I think if you're a kid, you go in there like, it's a pig with a blood stain, carrying sausage in one hand and a cleaver in the other hand, and then next is Jason. So you run the pig and Jason standing side by side, chasing you around. There's a dissonance there, but kids are like, the pig's gonna make the sausages, Jason's gonna chop me, whatever, doesn't matter. To a kid and this is me like, what matters and what doesn't matter. Like there's stuff that would really bother me, like, that's not tight with the narrative. It's just like, are you scaring people? They spend their money, and this is what somebody running an event is going to look at. Are people scared? Do they get the emotional release of the scream?
That's the funnest part. I just love it, and we actually have been very successful. We've had people lose their shoes in there, running out.
It's a good metric.
Yeah. I mean, literally, it's like we're like throwing the shoe out the door. Like we don't know who this is, but at the
You're
end,
missing a monetary opportunity there. You can start a used shoe store on the next day. Because you have a built-in audience, someone has lost their shoes, and they're like, I'm looking for shoes. We just happen to have used shoes.
What are
Yeah,
you? You
yeah.
look like a size 7.5.
Yeah.
Bowling
You wear
alley.
black Vans?
It's like the bowling alley. They pull them out. Here you go. Spraying it with the thing. That's good stuff.
Do you do any of the physical gags, like the inflatable wall thing, or like the wet strings?
Yes. So I actually introduced the claustrophobic hallway last year, and we did that last year, and we will be using that again this year, and probably not next year.
You saying that like that's a thing? Is there like a where are the message boards? Do people just refer? It's like, hey, the claustrophobic hallway. Yeah. I know that. That was invented by Reese Turner in 1975 for this haunt in Covina or something. Like, is that when you say like the claustrophobic hallway, is that like a
everybody
common
should know it?
Like, well, the two of you on the couch here are just kind of like throwing that term around, like it. Like, is that slang for like within the biz?
I think that people call it different things. I mean, I've heard them call it an airbag hallway or whatever.
The hallway we're referring to is some of these things are fairly common tropes you run into in a lot of haunted houses. Is a hallway where there's inflatable like airbags and you're literally there's no space, there's zero space, and you're squeezing between airbags, and you can see nothing because you're literally enveloped.
It's like around like. You have to push it out of the way, so you have no idea where you're going, what's in front of you. It's squeezing you,
and you can't see a thing. It's really not that physically hard to push through.
No.
These certain tropes that people use a lot. I don't know if tropes is the right word for it, but these certain gags you see a lot. So that one's been around, I think, for around 10 years or so. We've been seeing a lot of that, and it's good. I always enjoy it. And this is a high dollar one. Is I love. There's a bridge through a tunnel, and they'll have a round spinning. Like a starscape that's spinning and rotating. So you're walking on a hallway and the entire cosmos is spinning around you like clockwise. And you'll find yourself leaning to the left and like holding onto the rails like, oh crap, I'm going to fall. And
it makes you dizzy.
My house needs all the hallways to be that.
I went to a haunted house last year and I got into that thing where, you walk in the thing and
it's the vortex.
It's not scary.
Hallway.
It's more like
it's like a funhouse thing.
Actually, it's not scary. It's just something to throw off your equilibrium and to disorient you.
Okay.
And we started building one actually last year.
Going with Under the Sea, can that be like fish?
Well, you know what? I've seen a lot of those done. And there are some that are a lot better than others, and some that will disorient you.
Right. So is the point the room after that is the one that like you come out, you're disoriented, and then?
For me, that's the point. Yeah, that there's
right. That's
something else after it that you're disoriented for or something.
Yeah, disorientation, it just adds to the experience when you don't know quite where you are. The elevator gag is a fun one, and that only works on houses where you come in groups rather than a continuous line. And so you go into an elevator, and a lot of times this room, they'll like hydraulically, the room will like lift a little bit and shake a little bit like it's an elevator going down. And you walk in one door, and then you walk out the same door, and it's a completely different environment because somebody came in and shifted a wall or two. And now you're upstairs, and now you're in some basement with like moldy walls and just like, okay, I'm not even where I was. Anything they can do to disorient you, just every little bit they can do just to break away your comfort and just take you out of the world. You need to be kind of uncomfortable in these things. That's kind of the point.
Yeah. Do you have a classic like, oh, we're gonna go with this one because that's a classic scare?
Not really, because we really do try and change things up and not have everything be the same all the time.
Is there like a scare that you go, oh yeah, that's like walking through with the thing spinning around you?
Oh, actually, I do have one.
Oh, okay.
The chainsaw.
The chainsaw. Okay, that is
the chainsaw.
You see those in corn mazes. It still works most of the time, though it's a bit overdone, but yet it's still a favorite. It never seems to get old for most people.
No, because that is a classic scare, and everybody is afraid. Well, I don't want to say everybody. Most people are afraid, and they know it's coming.
How many people are in your haunt troupe?
Anywhere from maybe 20 to 40.
Right. Where do you find all these people? They're just people that you know?
They're all parishioners.
I get really lucky. I know a lot of people. I also have a big family. My kids are now like getting into their teenage years. And so we've had actors from kids up to, grown adults.
Yeah, what does your family think of all this?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do your kids think it's cool that you have a haunted house?
Yeah, they look forward to it every year. And now all of their friends are getting into it as well.
Well, at some point you could probably recruit all of them and do like a Children of the Corn type of thing.
I know. Wouldn't that be so awesome?
Yeah.
So, Gonzo, as a guy who's sort of looking at all of this from the outside, do you notice like this is like the third Saw house I've seen this year? Do you see like waves of stuff happening? Like, I mean, it seems like an easy go-to if it's like movies, but is there like weird shit? It's just like, oh yeah,
This is a trend that I've seen lately. I like horror movies. I like horror books. I'm a aficionado or a connoisseur, whatever
yeah.
we're running with right now. I don't like people being dicks to each other as a thing. And so torture porn, I don't want to see Hostel. I don't want to see Saw. I'm not interested in this particular genre. And there's a whole bunch of houses right now, these really, really immersive houses where you're going by yourself or the small group, and they'll take all your clothes off and they'll wrap you in saran wrap and throw blood in your face and
Make you drink stuff and torture
yeah.
you
and in that whole, and that's become a really big thing, and there's a lot of houses that are doing this, so it's a really intense experience. Clearly people like to do it because those houses, some of them have been doing pretty well. I have zero interest, and I'm not going to attend those. They call the genre of film torture porn.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan. And things can be, you can keep it fun, you can keep it lighter. I mean, the one I really want to go to this year, it's been around a couple of years. There's a train up in Fillmore, and it's an actual steam train. You can ride for like $12 or for like $40 or $50 or whatever like that. They give you paintball guns. And the train is an actual train driving through fields of zombies attacking the train. And you're blasting all the zombies.
Oh, now that would be so much fun.
Unless you're a zombie.
Well,
It's interesting. This experience doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be like. I mean, I want to go to a house that makes adults cry.
I would love to get an old abandoned asylum
Oh yeah, yeah.
and do.
Because when Bill was talking about themes, there had to be like asylum themes. I can imagine that was a thing for a while with Saw, and
We like to mix it up, going through like the Queen Mary or whatever, and they all have like a certain theme. I think I've decided I like it to be mixed up because you don't really know what to expect. Then you know what I mean. Instead of it's all about clowns or it's all about whatever. I don't know.
Well, when you got multiple haunts, that's why I think you really want to get themey. So this is the cowboy haunt, and this is the voodoo haunt.
Oh, to keep them from overlapping.
Yeah, so it's not just a bunch of clowns running around and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So if you go to 7 different haunts or 5 different haunts in one location, and they're all similar, it's kind of losing. So if I'm in a multi-haunt area, there's generally going to be like a zombie haunt with all technical stuff, and sirens going on and stuff like that. And then you go into like the vampire haunt or the crazy circus. Yeah. And so that's one. If you're going to have the multiple experiences, you do kind of want to partition them and have them each notably different from each other, so you can kind of remember and have a feel for each of the ones you go through.
Raz, I meant to ask you the other night. We were interviewing the band Ever So Android, and we were talking about watching all those television shows of like ghost hunters and stuff like that. Do you believe in ghosts?
yes, I was haunted.
I beg your pardon?
I was haunted.
By whom?
A ghost named Harold.
Go on.
We can talk about it now, or we can
Did
talk.
he have a purple crayon?
No, he was a 17-year-old boy that died in the early 1700s in Louisiana. He was, all right. Here we
Short
go.
version.
Short version.
Cliff notes.
Dating a girl, went back to meet her parents in swamps of Louisiana.
Cool.
She would go down to the graveyard, which was above ground. When she was a child, she would go down to the graveyards and hang out on this tomb of this kid named Harold, which was above ground, right? Then she suddenly leaves, comes to LA, meets me. We go back. I meet her parents, and she goes, oh, I need to go to say goodbye to Harold. So we go down. She says goodbye to Harold, and then we get back to LA. Then all of a sudden, stuff in the apartment is moving around. He would lock doors on us. He'd roll paper towels on the floor. He would run his hands down the Venetian blinds and stuff like that. So, yeah, we had someone come in and go, yeah, it's a spirit named Harold. He's conflicted. He was in love with your girlfriend, and she left immediately, and he just stayed tormented till she came back, and then he came with her. So he was cool with me. He would just fuck around, and so yeah, I was haunted, and we finally had him. We had somebody come in and do a whole thing.
evict him.
And yeah, so yeah. But I lived with Harold for a couple of years.
Do you guys, Amy and Gonzo, do you guys believe in ghosts?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's very real.
I've experienced some with witnesses before. Rally Stage 5, the legend of the grip who fell to his death, and you can see it's among all the Hollywood technicians. This one stage is well known, and we went out there.
Is it a sound
It's
stage?
it's a huge sound stage, and they have the catwalks above, and they say occasionally you can see a guy dressed like a 1920s guy with a little paperboy cap and all that, sitting on one of the perms, and the guy had fallen to his death from one of the catwalks, from the beams between the catwalks. And I went up there with a couple of friends, and we had to there was no filming going on. We just had to grab some equipment, some lighting equipment up there, and and it's huge, old. Everything's wood. It's ancient buildings from like the 30s or something. And we're walking up there, and my friends tell me like, "Hey, you heard about the stage?" Like, "Yeah, what's the deal?" He says, "Oh, this guy fell to his death from back here." So we walk back there, and they're called the zones. This is what's between the catwalks. These big square areas of just beams. That's where you'd hang lights and drop ropes to hold things. And I'm just reaching my hand into the zone and into the zone as we're walking down past, and all of a sudden, it's ice cold. There's one spot that's ice cold. So I backed off. And it's like, okay. I had my two friends who were with me both come and checked it out, and we verified that indeed it was chillingly cold, and it's right around where everybody kept pointing and saying this is where the guy is. And then we started, let's look around. Is there an air conditioner or anything? We couldn't find any reason. There was no reason why there would just be a spot around 10 feet wide and probably 3 or 4 feet deep of just remarkable cold temperature.
Right, because it gets really hot. The higher you get into that stage, it gets really, really hot being up in the perms.
The heat rises.
It gets
up there.
insufferable, yeah.
And you believe in ghosts too, Amy?
Yes.
You ever had an event like those?
Yeah, I have. I work on the dead, and so there's been some things I've experienced with that, working on the dead.
Does any of this stuff inform what you guys are doing? I mean, like, how closely related is it to, like, all right, so say you like horror movies. Like, Amy, do you like spooky movies too?
I do.
I know Gonzo said that he likes that kind of stuff, and he likes the books and the movies and whatever. Are you into sort of like the wide world of horror as well?
I am. I used to be actually more into that, but I feel like for me, I'm careful of how much and how deep I dive into stuff, because I think you can invite things that you don't necessarily want,
Okay.
around you with what you put into your mind.
So this stuff, do you consider it all interconnected? Like
What do you
Gonzo,
mean?
either like with other stuff you go to see, or creators that you know and interact with, people who are running these things, and Amy, as your experience as one of those people specifically, like, is this the thing, or is this the facet of a larger infatuation or worldview or sort of like philosophy about like spooky stuff and, getting the heart racing and interconnections between dimensions?
For me, it's more about that. I try and stay away from like the actual evil spiritual things. Like you'll never see a Ouija board or things like, seances and things like that in any of my stuff. I think that that's just an open portal and an invitation to other things that I don't want to be into. And so I stay with the whole thing of being creative, or maybe of people's fears of whatever they're afraid of, that whether it's, the science fiction or the chainsaw or the whatever, going through, stuff. And so for me, it's more about the anticipation, the heart racing, and the
dread and the jump.
Yep.
Would you consider your house like a classic haunted house? Is there such a thing as like a classic haunted house, or is it just?
I think there is. I think that for us, we have a mix of stuff. I think for me, if I'm thinking of a classic haunted house, I'm thinking of like Frankenstein and Dracula.
Like the Universal monsters.
The real, like the classic,
Well, by classic haunted house, I think he was referring to like of a haunt, like within the haunt culture.
It seems like it's very nebulous, I guess, where each house is a different. This is a, dudes on a chain link fence type of thing. That's not really like what you would consider like a classic, a classic haunt.
What I would define as a haunt is, and they're often referred to as mazes. They're not all mazes, but a lot of them are referred to mazes. You're going into a building or a place or something like that, and you're walking. You're going into some place, and you're going to walk in a kind of a linear area. You're not wandering around, and you're going as you're passing, like as you're walking through the hallways, or as you're going through the hedge maze, or as you're going through the corn maze, you will be experiencing a number of things that are waiting for you. So the classic thing is it's kind of linear. Even if it's a maze, it's kind of a linear trip. You start at the beginning and you're working your way towards the end, and you're going to encounter more and often worse things scaring you things as you walk towards the end, and in the end there's something super scary. That's the form of the traditional one. It sounds like you are running a classic style haunt.
In that sense, yeah, absolutely. And you know, and last year definitely was the case, but also in the last room that we did was a real maze. So you actually had to choose where you were going to go and which hallway you were going to go down, and it may be the right one or it may not have been the right one.
Where did the wrong hallway go? Or like, are there still kids like stuck in this room?
You will never know.
Like stuck in this room?
Are there stakes? Are there like, is there like, can like the boogeyman grab you and like take you out, and it's just like, where did Tim go?
No, but no, because we don't. You might be like brushed or something, but we're not like, you know, grabbing.
Nobody's
on
grabbing,
you.
getting.
No, not like that. But you know, you definitely there was, if you went down the wrong hallway, or there might, you know, there's somebody there, or there was whatever, or and in this there was the chainsaw in that, and so you might get trapped where there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, to me that's terrifying, like being trapped in a room. Like,
and these are like little tiny, you know, 2.5 foot, you know, hallways of you don't know where to go. There was one right way to go to make it to the exit, but you just had to figure out which ones to always be choosing to make it there. So.
Gonzo, you ever seen anything like that where somebody can get like nabbed and sort of like pulled out of the situation?
I'd like to see those. Mostly, I think it's most of the houses I've been to, almost every house I've been to, is they won't touch you except by accident. They might brush against you or something like that. They won't grab you. And I know that there have been houses in the past where that's the thing. There was one house that was just 1 year only, and it was like a stunt troupe out of like Indiana or something like that. Something weird. Came down here to LA and ran a house, and they would grab you and pull at you and stuff like that, but they would never, you know, you would never be abducted. You'd never be taken away. But it was pretty remarkable because they had a guy would jump down a flight of stairs, like 3 flights of stairs, and just land right in front of you. Say, I'll kill you all. And all of a sudden this figure comes flying out of the darkness, like, what the hell? And just lands with a big thump, like a whole superhero landing right in front of you. And you're just like,
I love that stuff.
yeah, it was great.
elaborating on Bill's idea, you should have a plant, like a kid that just goes in with different troops that they think he's just part of the troop.
I've had that.
Oh, okay.
I have had that because you got to be very careful with this day and age. Probably years ago, you could get away with more stuff, but this day and age, you got to be very careful with people are so happy or they're whatever, and you have to be very careful what you're doing as far as if somebody's touching somebody or somebody, you know what I mean? You have to just be real careful.
If I was running a house, you'd better believe it'd be all about shills. So a shill is a carnival term for the guy in the audience that's interacting.
Oh, a plant.
Yeah. It's a plant. So that's a term for a planted person in the audience. Yeah. So shills is a fantastic game to play.
Thing.
And Raz, I thought you were still hanging on to the under the sea theme, like you were gonna have like a plant like spooky kelp or something like.
Well, we're gonna bring that up at the next scare meeting. Right?
Oh, okay.
Well, Zombie Joe's Underground, that weird little playhouse, once again around a mile from here. Everything's a mile from here.
What's up, Burbank? Why are you so creepy?
It's the center of the universe. That's why
It is, actually.
we're here.
They actually had an under the sea themed haunt, a weird interactive play / haunt, and they had creepy mermaids and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's fun. Zombie Joe. It's a theater around twice the size of this room, and they all do like weird zombie
Small
stuff.
is what that means.
All right. Change under the sea. We're going to go with Always Together.
Always together. Because we stitched you together.
Friends Forever, whatever those themes were. I don't know.
All right, so people don't usually grab and stuff, and that brings me back to kind of how I opened this, was like my wife talking to me about that Alice Cooper stuff. People were probably getting their hands and noses broken because they were getting so like creepy grabby?
It's unusual. It's been done, and you can make people sign a waiver or something like that for
Sure.
stuff. But it's not. That is definitely atypical in the current haunting community, that somebody would do something like that. And that one stunt show I was at, they would grab your ankles and stuff as you walk in the dark. You'd get grabbed, but they'd never trip you. It was like they pushed. But that was I think probably the only time I've ever been intentionally grabbed in a haunt.
Okay, Gonzo, what's your favorite haunt?
My favorite haunt ever was a haunted vineyard over in Riverside. And it was just because they had a constant pursuit and a constant dread. Like when we walked past the scarecrow and it didn't move, we looked at it, didn't move, looked at it, didn't move, take 10 steps, turned around, and it was gone. I mean, they had their full ninja skills on, and you always felt every moment you were there that something was coming after
What
you.
about you, Raz?
What about me? What?
All right.
Wait, what?
Where's you ever been? I mean, do you do this thing?
No.
Are you on board? So you're not on board? You're
No,
Not,
yeah.
so you seem like you could be like halfway to like Spook Town.
Yeah,
Like, you could be down with this. You seem like the kind of guy who might have seen like all of the Dawn of the Dead's or whatever's movies and like is also into this. Maybe it's the sleeve tattoo. I don't know.
yeah, no, I'm easily scared. So I am easily scared.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm easily scared. So I try not to put myself in situations, I mean, I am easily scared, but I'm also a rational human being. So I don't put myself in situations where I am easily scared. So
So you don't have a favorite haunted house then?
I don't. I mean, Amy's is going to be my favorite haunted house.
Okay.
Right?
Exactly.
Especially if I can get a VIP pass for the upstairs
You're going to
party.
get one. You guys all get one.
All right.
I'll give you it all, guys.
Raz
so
is going bobbing for apples.
Okay, so where can we find this haunted house?
So October 25th at 7955 Hill Rose Street, Sunland, California.
California.
What time does it start?
The doors open for the haunted house at 7 p.m. The actual party upstairs, which everybody is also invited to, starts at 6.
Okay.
And that's dinner. It's a chili cook-off. There's a trunk or treat for the kids, games for the kids, and things like that going on upstairs, and a dance later on.
Doors open at 7 and close behind you.
Yes.
I guess we'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the Green Couch, Gonzo. It
Well,
was fascinating. We'll have you back and we'll talk about ski biking or whatever that's called. Bike skiing.
Ski biking.
Ski biking. Amy, we'll see you on the 25th.
All right. Thank you. I'm so excited.
Thanks for having us.
On the Green Couch is a production of ArtSchool Records in conjunction with and recorded at Project 4 Studios in Burbank, California. The show is edited by Raz, with additional production support by Dixie Trussell. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It all goes to helping other people find us. For more information, please visit our forever home on the web at artschoolrecords.com. I'm Bill Zunkin, and thanks for listening.